Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's Apex office hours. My name is Mark Seefts. I'm Senior Director of Software Development, and I manage the development of Apex. Today, we're going to talk about what's new in Flows for Apex 22.2. Niels de Bruijn and Richard Allen are going to do the presentation. I'm going to introduce them in a moment. But first, I would like to do a few announcements and updates. Our last Apex office hours were on August 11th. That was the third part in a series of developer tips. And in August, Andrea Montenot, Menno Hogendick, and Ottmar Gobricht presented their tips and tricks for Apex. You can watch the replay by going to apexorg.com/office hours. And we also have like all our previous office hours available there for you to watch. Then in October and November, we have a few more Apex office hours scheduled. On October 13th, we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of what's coming in Apex 22.2. Apex 22.2 is going to be our second release this year. And yeah, we're going to give you a preview on October 13th, and then on October 27th, November 3rd, and November 10th, we're going to do some deep dives into new marquee features, new item types and region types, as well as enhancements to PWA and user and developer experience. Again, go to apexorg.com/office hours to look at the schedule and to sign into our office hours. And then we have a few upcoming in-person events. On October 17th to the 20th, there's going to be Oracle Cloud World in Las Vegas. Cloud World is the successor to Oracle Open World, which used to be in San Francisco. And then later this year on December 1st and 2nd, there's going to be the next UK OUG conference, Breakthrough 22 in Birmingham in the UK. So go to UK OUG website to sign up and look at the agenda there. All right, then we have PSEs, patch set bundles available for Apex 22.1. They're available through My Oracle support. We update or we provide patches numerous times after a release. The last update or last PSE was released on September 14th. That was version 5. Again, you can download them from My Oracle support. And when you apply that PSE, then your product version will be updated to 22.1.5. And you can also use static resources like our images and JavaScript files via CDN. When you go to apexorg.com/download, you'll get all the details on how to configure the CDN for your on-premise setups. I also want to highlight, as always, our ideas app, Oracle, apexorg.com/ideas. We invite you all to provide feedback and ideas and enhancement requests through this application. Just this week, we met to review a bunch of ideas and prioritize them for our next release. So we do look at them and we pick up some enhancements for upcoming releases. And sometimes we also close some of these enhancements, sometimes because they're simply not feasible to do, but sometimes also just because they are too broad. So when we close an idea because it's too broad, doesn't necessarily mean that we change direction, right? It just means that we need more specific ideas to actually action them. So don't read anything into it. When we close them, we try to explain the reasoning as best as we can. But yeah, sometimes some enhancements are just too broad. Right, with that, I'd like to introduce you to Niels de Bruijn and Richard Allen. They're going to talk to us today about Flows for Apex 22.2. Flows for Apex is an open source BPMN 2.0 workflow extension for Apex. It's been around now for about 18 months. It's a viable workflow solution that you can use with Apex. A number of our customers are using Flows for Apex already, including internal customers inside Oracle. We actually add workflow capabilities and approval capabilities to Apex directly as well. So in this release of Flows for Apex, they worked on a close integration with our unified task list and approvals component in Apex. We've been supporting this project for some time. It's been initiated by Niels de Bruijn from the MTAG and his team. One of their main developers is Richard Allen. And Richard Allen actually came back to Oracle earlier this year. So he's working on our team now, and he continues working on flows for Apex. Many of you, of course, know Niels de Bruijn. He's leading the low-code consulting team at MTAG in Germany. He's also an ACE director and the originator of this Flows for Apex project. Richard Allen has been with Oracle before. He used to be a product manager and director of Oracle security team back in the Oracle 7 days, which was sometime in the 90s. And he's been working on Flows for Apex for 2 years now, and he came back earlier this year. Right, so both of them are going to talk to you now about Flows for Apex and show you what's new in this open source framework. All right, let me stop sharing. There you go, all yours.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Let me first share the screen. And then we'll go into presenter mode here. So thank you all. Thanks for the introduction, Mark. Yeah, let's get the party started, so to say, the latest and greatest of Flows for Apex version 22.2. Before we go into that, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A panel. We have other team members here on board on this session, so they can answer the questions in the chat. And afterwards, we can also take a few questions as well in the question and answer round afterwards to the presentation. Yeah, before talking about the latest and greatest about 22.2, I first would like to give you a rough overview of what Flows for Apex is all about. So Flows for Apex is an Oracle Apex extension that allows you to build process-oriented apps, and not only to build them, but also to run them completely in the Oracle database. And that's all BPMN 2.0 standardized. It comes with version 90C or higher. So if you talk about Flows for Apex 22.2, we support 90C or higher. And we also ship an Apex app to let you model and manage those business processes. And for that, you can import that app into Apex 20.1 or higher. So if you have then built your own process flows on one hand, and you have your custom Apex on the other hand, you would like to do some back and forth communication between the two. And for that, we also supply you with several plugins you might then use, and you don't have to program anything. So how does the overall process look like? So you start off first by installing Flows for Apex, and you can install Flows for Apex within minutes. It's completely open source, it's free. It even runs on apex.oracle.com if you like. So for demo purposes, you can right away start with it. And we have even a cloud instance for you ready to go into if you're not into installation. Flows for Apex itself on the left-hand side, once you have installed it in your Apex workspace schema, you can immediately start working with it. So you would model your process flows over there. And once you click on the button, Apply Changes, that whole XML specification, BPMN 2.0 is based on XML, is then being stored in your workspace schema in our model there. And we use a PL/SQL parser to take out various kinds of XML parts and transform them into a relational table structure. And on top of that relational table structure, you have views and then a PL/SQL API you can use in your own apps. And that's what we see on the right-hand side. You have your custom Apex app there, and you either might want to use the PL/SQL API, or you might want to use one of our ready-to-go plugins. We ship also with the software distribution. So how to get started with Flows for Apex? Our main website is flowsforapex.org. Here you can subscribe our newsletter. I recommend that you do this and that you get the latest information about upcoming releases of Flows for Apex and also some information about upcoming events we have. Downloading, installing the software is pretty straightforward. I recommend you have a close look in our sample app. That's also part of the software distribution. And that sample app could be your custom app, and it will show you the various parts that are needed to integrate your process flow with your custom app. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about the BPMN specification itself, we have pre-installed tutorials to get you up and running and acquainted with the BPMN standard. But you can also have a look at the start page of flowsforapex.org. There we have a step-by-step tutorial that gets you into building your first app and integrating it with Flows for Apex. Various kinds of YouTube videos are also available on our channel, and we certainly have planned to release more videos on that channel, so you can subscribe to that channel as well. And of course, our documentation is also already available on flowsforapex.org. So there you can read a little bit more about BPMN modeling elements, various concepts we have, but also the PL/SQL API we provide you with. So, and with that, I would like to pass on to Richard Allen, who will give us an overview of the main features in 22.2.
Okay, hi everybody. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the new features in 22.2 with a few slides on PowerPoint, and then show you most of it through a fairly extensive demo, and we will see how the features work in there. So the first big feature in 22.2 is the support for BPMN call activities. And this is the feature that most of our existing users have been asking for. So at the moment, you have to have all of your process diagram in a single diagram. And with people having complex processes, this means that you end up repeating bits of diagram in different models and not being able to share and reuse model components. So call activities allows you to take a single model at the top here, and we have this task here called order handling process. And you can see this is denoted with a thicker line and a plus sign here. And when the workflow gets to this task, then it goes and executes a completely different diagram. And so the diagram that you start on can go and call another diagram. I guess this is a bit like programming with subprocessors now, or subprograms now. We can nest diagrams freely, so you can stack them to whatever complexity you want, except that you can't have regression directly or indirectly in your call stack. This really allows people to reuse parts of process, to decompose their processes into smaller diagrams, to reuse those diagrams across processes. And I can see a scenario where, for example, your IT group may put together a complex process for order handling or shipping. And then line of business developers build a process to work for a particular application or a particular sales promotion. And rather than having to handle the details of how orders get taken and processed, they can just call those diagrams as part of the promotion process. Now, having diagrams calling other diagrams means that we have to worry about scoping of process variables. So Flows for Apex has a process variable system which keeps track of process variables from the start to the completion of a process. And once diagrams can call other diagrams, you have issues around diagram variables having the same name in different diagrams. And so we have to worry about scoping. And so that's one of the features as part of this. And then you can pass parameters from the calling diagram into the called diagram, and then you can return variables once this called diagram is finished. So this is a big feature, particularly for users who've got complex processes, modeling serious business applications. The next big feature we have implemented is supporting the Apex 22.1 approval task. So those of you who've looked at the latest version of Apex will have seen the approval component, where there's a pre-built process and a way of easily producing task detail forms for handling approval tasks. And with Flows for Apex, we can combine those approvals into a larger workflow process. And in the demo, you'll see an example of where we have a single approval that we include in our process, and also where we do a multi-level approval, where something has to get approved by one manager, then another, and then another before it gets signed off. And in conjunction with this, then we can also put the Flows for Apex user tasks into the unified task inbox with a little bit of configuration. And you'll see that again in the demo, where we're showing both Apex approval tasks and Flows for Apex user tasks, which are Apex page calls, in the same menu. Or in the same task inbox, I should say. Another feature we have added is to simplify the way we do gateway routing. So a gateway in BPMN is one of these switching points where the process can go in one direction or the other. And we've added a simplified way of describing the conditions to take each path. And this allows you to put PL/SQL expressions or PL/SQL function bodies onto each of the forward paths, each of the forward flows, to define whether that path should be taken or not. And this should make it much easier for people to put these together, and also for business users and analysts to understand their process diagrams. I'll show you this in the demo. In our last release, we added support for French and used that as a way to make sure that Flows for Apex was translatable. In this release, we've taken that one step further, and we've produced the infrastructure to allow our community members to help us do translations. And we have, with help from community members, we are releasing, we will release Flows for Apex with Brazilian Portuguese, Japanese, and German language support. And in future releases, we look to members of the Apex community who want to get Flows for Apex running in their languages for a bit of help. We machine translate the application, and it then requires probably less than a week's work to proof that and get everything working. We managed to do Japanese, which should be more difficult than the other European languages, and the effort to get that translated was in the order of 2 to 3 days. So if you want to help us to get Flows for Apex in your language, then please talk to Niels de Bruijn. And there's a few other smaller enhancements. Process variables are now truly case insensitive. There's a new expense claim demo app that's supported on Apex 20.1. The demo that I'm going to show you requires Apex approvals, and so requires 22.1. And under the covers, we've done quite a few changes to make sure the translation framework is in place. We're storing more of the diagram attributes in JSON, which makes it easier for us to extend the process diagrams and support for new features. And we have added a reasonably extensive regression test suite using UTPL SQL for testing the process engine. And so we have a regression suite that is growing and will only grow in the future, which helps us to release the workflow engine with better build quality. So without too many more slides, I want to move on and show you a demonstration of how this all comes together. And in the last week, I've built a demo. Let me explain the scenario. So this is the Apex Aircraft Parts Company. And this company supplies large aircraft parts, things like engines, seats, cushions, toilet assemblies, things that go in planes, to aircraft maintenance and repair organizations around the world. These goods come from different places around the world. Sometimes they need to ship by ocean. Sometimes we need to fly them around the world. There's an aircraft on the ground. You use air freight to ship things. And some things are small and you use DHL or a courier to send them. And so this is more complex than the standard demo you see of somebody shipping a t-shirt from a website. There's a team of people involved to make this work in different departments, and the workflow process helps coordinate the efforts of all of the people in this team to take and ship orders and deal with all of the export paperwork that's required to do this in a legal fashion. So we have a cast of characters here. We have Scott, the sales guy, and his boss, Georgia Go, the general manager. And we have Ed, the Eagle, who is our export compliance guy, who does all of the nasty customs paperwork and other export compliance issues. And then we have Oscar, the ops dude, who actually does all the work of picking things, packing things, and actually shipping them. Now, don't worry, this is not an eyesight test, but here's the process that Apex aircraft parts go through to ship parts. And you can see this process diagram has got lanes on it. So here's Scott, our sales guy, and he does the tasks in this top lane. So he takes the order and he has to do some approval and he has to talk to the customer. Our general manager is just involved approving various things. Ed, our export guy, is involved in export documentation. And the Oscar, the ops dude, first of all has to arrange transportation for all the different modes that something is going to ship. And then later he has to pick, pack, and dispatch goods. And I'll show you more of the process as we get into the demo, but just have that in mind as a sort of overview of the process. We take an order, and then the order has to get accepted or approved to be accepted. Once the order is accepted, then there's a chunk of work to do all of the export paperwork, and there's a group of tasks around scheduling shipping for the goods. Once that's all done, then the whole package goes through a 3-level approval cycle. So it gets approved by the sales guy, then approved by the general manager, then approved by export compliance, at which point we have a shippable order. And we're then going to send the export paperwork to the customer, and Oscar's going to come and pick goods, pack them, and ship them. So let's let me change my share to the demo. And so this is an Apex 22.1 application that's running on the CI with Flows for Apex behind it. And I'm logged in as Scott, the sales guy, and he's got 2 orders here. And we're now going to enter a new order, and he's got an order from Johor Aerospace, and they've got an A320 that they want to put new seating into. And here's the aircraft serial number. So that's the sort of nickname for this order. He's now going to start the order process. Now this is going to start the process in Flows for Apex behind the scenes. We're going to start working on our order, and let's add 25 rows of left-hand seats that are going to need to ship by ocean. And let's add 25 rows of right-hand seats, which are going to ship by ocean from the manufacturer. And then let's have 160 sets of seat cushions, which are going to fly by courier from the factory in Hong Kong. Now, in a workflow application, typically, or on quite a few of the tasks, you're going to want to maybe save it and come back to the process later. So we can save that task. That's doing a database transaction. That's doing the updates into the database. And it's putting the task is still on the inbox, in Scott's inbox. So Scott can pick the task up again and work on it. He can show where it is in the process. So here's our process viewer, and you can see here's the overall task that needs to get done, and we're still on the first task. And he can reserve this task and say, I'm working on this, so that other people don't need to do that. So let's go back to our order, and this looks quite good. So let's submit this for acceptance, and it now disappears out of his inbox. And let's go to Georgia's inbox. Georgia, our general manager. When she signs in and looks at her unified task inbox, she can see this Apex approval task sitting in her inbox, and she can make a comment here. And later on, we'll see how we are consolidating these comments across the whole process. So Georgia has now approved the task, and let's now sign in as Eddie, our export dude. And he now has several tasks related to this project. Let's just have a look at the process diagram, see where we are in the process. And so you can see, if I zoom in here, to make this less of an eyesight test for people, that we've gone into this sub-process called export documentation, which is in our main diagram. He's got one task to produce the letter of credit documentation that's required. And he's got this call activity task, which is the new feature we've added in this release. And if we drill into here, we can see the diagram that it calls. Now, in reality, this process is probably 10 or 20 boxes and fairly complex. But to make the demo shorter, I've just put task A and task B in here, just so we can see what's going on. So let's get on and do this task, and that's completed. And we've now got task B for this order. And I want to just jump out of the application and show you something in the Flows for Apex console, the designer and the monitor, while we have a call activity running. So this is the Flows for Apex application that ships, that's used for managing and designing your processes and monitoring the processes that are running. And this is the process that we are looking at. And you can see that here is my call activity. Zoom in a bit. And we have tasks that are in the parent diagram, and also tasks that are running inside the call activity. And if you look on the left-hand side here, on the subflows, you can see that we have one marked green and the others not highlighted. When I flip between the two diagrams, I just need to get back to the header. When I go between diagrams, then I'm highlighting the tasks that are on the current diagram level. Likewise, I can look at the process variables that are in play in this process. And these are the ones in my current scope, the top level diagram. And when I drill into the, when I drill into the call activity, then you can see the ones in the scope for this diagram are now highlighted in green. It just helps you to manage kind of what's in which scope, and so you can see. Anyhow, I don't really want to show you too much of the console. I just wanted to show you that while we're doing it. So let's go back to our application, and we're now going to reserve this task and complete it. And you can see now that the call activity completed, and so at the end there, if I drill in here, you can see that all of the tasks in that sub-process, that called activity, that called process, all completed. Okay, so let's do his other task. So let's just reserve it and get on and do it. And so he's now finished with what he needs to do. This is a different order that he was working on earlier. And now we'll go to Oscar, the ops guy. And you can see that he now has work to do. He's got to arrange the ocean shipment. And so he can reserve that task and book it. And then he's going to book the courier. And in fact, he's already noticed that this doesn't need much effort. And so the company has decided that they're going to replace that task with a script task that just automatically books things with DHL. And so one of the things about automating your processes and diagramming your processes is that you discover that some steps really don't require much input, and you can automate them as you do process improvement. Right, so all of the preparation work is now done for our order. So let's now go to this 3-level approval process. We're going to start off with Scott, who needs to sign off his order. So he can leave a comment here. No discounts on the cushion, which is going to keep his boss happy. And you can see that we're combining comments together across the whole process, which is not something that the task detail page does out of the box at the moment. So we've done a small configuration on the task detail page to bring all of the comments together at process level. And we will just include the code in the distribution set so that you can add that into, you can just change the view underneath the comments and the task details. So here we are, we're back to Georgia, our general manager. And so she can now add to the comments. That's good. You obviously gave some money away last time. So she's signed off. And then we go to Eddie, the export guy, and he has the final approval on this. And he is going to look in here. He can see, did I not save something? He is going to I think I didn't add the comment, that's why. And he has approved, and so that is done. So now it's all over to Oscar to do the hard work and actually pick up, order, pack it, and dispatch it. So let's look in Oscar's task inbox, and you can see that we're now getting to the bottom portion of the diagram where we took the order, we did the export paperwork, we arranged the shipping, we went through our 3-level approval process, we've shipped all the export documentation to the customer, and now we're going to pack the goods and dispatch them. Now, the final thing I want to show you in here is how we've changed the way you define gateway routing expressions. And so what we wanted to do is have a way that's much easier for business users to be able to understand the directions for the gateway. This is an exclusive gateway, which means we either go one way or the other. And I'm just going to flip back into the Close to Apex console, into the designer, and I'm going to show you the model underneath this. So what we do in the gateway here is we have a variable expression which runs before it splits. So you can think of this as sort of like a pre-gateway trigger almost. And we've got a little bit of PL SQL in here to go and figure out whether we need to do export or domestic shipping. I'd see that a developer would set this up when they're setting up the process. And we're returning, either UK or, either domestic or export into this process variable called packaging type. Then on the forward paths from the gateway as part of the flow definition for the path, then now we can just have a simple either PL/SQL function or a PL/SQL expression, which have to return a Boolean. And here our expression just is packaging type equals export. You've noticed that we are supporting bind syntax here, in addition to the substitution syntax that we've supported everywhere else. At the moment, this is the only place you can bind process variables. We'll probably extend that in the next release. And the syntax here, we've got our colon bind syntax, bind symbol, and then we just have a F or A $ prefix on the process variable name so that the flows for Apex process variables don't get confused with page items and other things in your application, followed by the variable name. So packaging type equals export. And these conditions are executed in sequence. So this is sequence 20, one on here is sequence 30, and this route is taken where packaging type equals domestic. And I think this makes far more sense for business users and business analysts. Part of what we want to do in taking processes and externalizing them into a process diagram, rather than having them scattered on links between regions and pages and buttons and things, is to make applications more, the process logic more explicitly visible, and also to allow business analysts and less technical users to change business processes within reason, without having to go back to a developer to change PL/SQL all of the time. And so here I would see this working, that a developer would set this up, but then a business analyst could easily add a new route or change the process, add some email or some communications objects into the process without needing to go back to IT to change the application. So that's our final sort of feature that I'm going to show in here. So let's just jump back to our process and ship it up. So what's happening here? We're going to figure out whether it's export or domestic. If it's export, then we have to go through a 24-hour security hold in the warehouse before we can ship things. In the demo, that's a 20-second delay. And then we dispatch things. Then we automatically notify the customer, and our process is done. So let's reserve that task, and let's go and pick the goods. Done. Let's reserve that task, and we'll pack our goods. Now my inbox is going to be empty for 20 seconds while I wait for the timer to go off. One of the things about workflow demonstrations is there's an awful lot of signing in and signing out again. I'm sorry, but that's the nature of the beast. And anyhow, here we are. Yep, we got our goods ready to dispatch, and we're going to dispatch the goods. Task done. And if I just log back in as Scott now, who's kind of keen to see what's happening with, first of all, he's got nothing in his inbox, so he's happy. And then he wants to check to see how all his customers are doing, how his orders are doing. And this order that we just added, that's all completed, so that's good. And he's got this order from yesterday, which hasn't gone out, it's still running. And he can have a look at that and see where the process is. The problem seems to be Eddie with the export documentation. Maybe I need to give him a call. And so, this allows the organization to see where tasks are in their process. And in this demo, just to recap, we have we've shown you the call activity where we can have one process diagram which calls another. We've shown the integration with the approval component from Apex 22.1, and with some minor changes, we're able to capture the comments at a process level, not just at a task level, to catch that conversation between the approvers. We've seen how we've been able to put the flows for Apex tasks, both approval tasks and normal Apex page tasks, into the unified task inbox. We've seen the new syntax for gateway routing. I haven't shown you Japanese or Brazilian, you have to take my word for that. But basically, you can see how we've put these features together into an application. And I just want to say one more thing about the demo application. So all of this is built with virtually no SQL or PL SQL. Nearly everything in the definition here is declarative. The returns from the approval task, the actions in the approval task use a plugin and so are declarative. Defining the page calls and the approvals is all declarative. A few snippets of SQL or PL SQL to define the triggering conditions on things, but there wasn't even a need to build a PL SQL package behind this application because everything is nice and declarative, as it should be in Apex. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Niels.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me share my screen again. All right, so we've seen a great uptake with Flows for Apex. It was firstly introduced in 2020, but we already have over 3,700 downloads, over 500 subscribers for the newsletter, and even over 50 customer projects. And those are even those projects we are aware of. Yeah, so I guess this is only the tip of the iceberg. 3 of those customer projects I would like to show you. So one of them is BPMN, which is a German company, and they take care of all the invoices coming from doctors. And they have used Flows for Apex in their production environment for setting up an installment request. So I guess here also you can see you can do some pretty sophisticated stuff with Flows for Apex. And with the announced call activities in Flows for Apex 22.2, you can even bring it to another dimension if you like. The next one is here from the automotive industry. Here they use Flows for Apex for user management purposes. They have also developed 13 workflows already running in production. 7,000 users are using those process flows, and about 10 instances are spin up on each of single day. So this gives you another idea. And also the software we built, we also use. Drink your own champagne, eat your own dog food, as they say. So in this case, we also use it in production, a procurement process where our own employees can request a mouse or some other hardware, or maybe a software license, something they need to do our work. And for that, it goes through an approval process, and it also is then shipped, ordered, and is picked up then by the employee at the office, or it is sent to their home address. So this whole process is being modeled with Flows for Apex and is running there. And one of the main features I like with Flows for Apex is that you can always see as an end user where I'm standing in the overall process and what are the next steps that need to be accomplished to move this process forward. On the 4th of October, we have, so next week, we have a separate session, more interactive session where all of you can also open up your mic and get in contact with us. We can also show you a little bit more of the details, maybe of the demo that Richard has been showing you. So if you like to register for that session, have a look at my blog post. And yeah, if you like this software, it's all open source. It's partly spare time. It's partly sponsored by our employees to work on it. But yeah, we are highly dependent on your support, meaning various kinds of ways. So one way to support us would be to send us what you're doing with Flows for Apex. That would help us. So you can act maybe as a project reference. And I've shown you 3 instances of those project reference just a minute ago. But you can also become a partner if you like. So if you like to take out Flows for Apex to your own customers, we've seen this already throughout the world. There are various kinds of partners that are taking Flows for Apex to their own local customers. So I'll be happy to help you out if you need information, if you have any questions there. And we might even organize a partner conference in November. So send me a mail if you're interested. And other than that, we're also searching for people that have some spare time left so they can help us out in the project, also for future releases. So that might be doing some testing using the UTPL SQL test framework we've set up. Or you could also translate. So I also saw a question about Spanish, and other languages. So if you'd like to support that, please let us know. Then you can help us out by translating the app. And also, if you're good in programming itself, you can join our team. We have various kinds of meetings going on using Zoom. We have also Slack channel in place where we interact. So if you're interested in that, just let us know. If you're only interested in sponsoring it on a financial point, there's the possibility to use GitHub sponsors. So without setting up any complex contract, you can send us an amount and I will make sure that you get a proper invoice. And then your bucks get prioritized if you submit those through our GitHub project. And also, if you want to have an individual maintenance contract, that would also be possible. So all the partners that do something with Flows for Apex, that might be MTAG, that might be Insum, that might be some other company, they are also free to offer their own maintenance contracts to customers. So, and with that, I'm at the last slide. I would like to introduce you to the core team. Richard, you've already met. Moritz, Dennis, Louis are also on this call, and we're busy trying to answer every question you might have. And I would like to have go out a special thanks to Jörg Doppelreiter and John Bowell for their contributions in the current release 22.2. And with that, I would like to take further questions if there are any. I've seen a lot of activity already going on. There are lots of attendees at this session already. And all the colleagues were also busy answering those questions. So is there any questions still opened? Or if not,
one just came in. Okay. One just came in. It was in the chat. And yes, the old process variable on gateways will still work.
Oh, yeah.
And it will win against the new way because we need to keep compatibility to what you did before. However, we really hope you embrace the new way instead of that old process variable. So help us get rid of that sometime in the future by not using it too much. I mean, it's a safeguard for you. If the process goes wrong, your conditions are wrong, you can use it to override. So it's your administrative way to make the process still work, even though one of the conditions is just maybe a syntax error or something like that.
By the way, nice shirt, Moritz.
Oh, well, I'm not sure if the participants can see that, but this is our new swag.
Okay.
We have shirts with Flows for Apex.
All right. So any other questions? I see some questions here. So how are parameters passed to and from the call activities? Maybe Richard, you can go into that.
Yeah, probably the easiest way is to show you.
Oh, let me stop sharing.
Hang on. So the parameters going in and out of a call are modeled, looks quite similar to the way that variable expressions are set up. So we look at this task, which is our call activity in here. And you can see that we can define the diagram we're going to call. So this can all be, this is all declarative. And I'm going to use the latest version of that diagram. And then I can define the variables that get passed in, their type, and they can be set either as statics or a copy of a process variable from a SQL query returning a colon delimited list, a PL SQL expression, or a function body. And so that will work on variables of the scope of the calling diagram and set a variable here in the scope of the called diagram, just like you're passing values into a procedure, really. And then on the way back out, you can do the same thing. You can define how things are passed back. Now, at the end of the demo, so I'm just going to do something dangerous. So I'm going to delete my calls here. So my demo is not going to work until I fix it again. So I can get rid of those. But when you set a diagram up to be callable, you define the variables that need to be passed in, just like you specify the in and out parameters in the heading of a PL SQL procedure. And so when we call the procedure, then we can go and look at the metadata. And hang on, we should be able to. Okay, my first problem of the day. You should be able to, I got right diagram.
Well, that was working 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, maybe I've lost my session. Okay, sorry about that. That's the danger of demoing things on the fly. But anyhow, I think I'd lost my session there. But anyhow, you can declare, it'll pull up the list of the variables you need to fill in, and then you can just fill them in from the variables. So it's very easy to define your input and output parameters.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Maybe another question that popped up in the chat. With Apex new native approval and tasks, can we achieve workflow solution like this? What major difference? So I guess this is more like, what's the difference between flows for Apex and the approval task component in 22.1? So
well, the approval task is really one task in a workflow. And if you have a really simple approval cycle and you don't really need an external workflow coordinator, you can build your process with the approval component. And so, a typical simple sort of fill in your expenses, send it to a manager approves, expenses get paid, simple process. You can do that fine just with the approval component. Mm-hmm. If you have a larger workflow, you can see in this example, we had a workflow that spanned 4 players. In reality, that's probably going to be, 5 to 10 players. And you have work that needs to go into an inbox, get picked up again. And the tasks are not just approval tasks; they're Apex, work. Apex pages, then a workflow engine which is going to help you coordinate all those other things, is you need to do that. But for something simple, you could just use the approval component.
Yeah. Okay. That will do, I think. I had a question about maybe a final question about where we can submit to the partner program. Yeah, if there's such. Just direct. You can send me a direct email to my address, or you can contact me through the Twitter if you like. So just give a note, and I will make a note myself, and I will invite you then for a partner event that we are in the planning phase. All right. With that, I would like to say thank you all for joining this session. We had really great questions along the way, and we're really looking forward to what you're doing with Flows for Apex. So just give that feedback, and maybe some final words from Mark.
Yeah, just want to thank you, Niels and Richard. That was great. Great presentation, great demo. So thank you very much.
All right, then have a nice day.
All right, see you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.